when I look at business, it's a puzzle, and you're putting a puzzle together. But every night when you go home, the picture changes and the pieces change a little bit. And tomorrow you got to try to put it back together again the next day. And I enjoy that part of it, even though I can't do puzzles. I enjoyed that part of business.
Welcome back, everybody, to this episode of the Pay It Forward podcast. I am one of your hosts, Austin Seward, along with my co-host, Keegan Walls. And today we have the pleasure of sitting down with Joe Laux. Joe is the former president and CEO of River States Truck and Trailer, which they recently sold to Penske, which is a publicly traded company. River States Truck and Trailer was recognized 9 times in the Wisconsin 75, which recognizes Wisconsin's largest and most successful companies. They were recognized as Truck Dealer of the Year and Freightliner Dealer of the Year. And Joe is also a sports memorabilia collector and enthusiast. So we are very excited to have Joe here today. We had to reschedule. Glad that we could align our schedules and be here today. So thanks for being here.
I'm so excited to be here with you and your millions and millions and millions of fans.
Absolutely.
Well, Pat McAfee there.
Tell us about the sale. That's obviously your most recent big thing that's going on. Tell us the experience of selling to a publicly traded company.
Well, you know, when you get into business as an entrepreneur, you don't ever think about the selling process. And unfortunately or fortunately, you only have to do it once. We went very theoretically about it. We got a quality of earnings report as well as all our financial information. We had pretty good detailed financial information. We hired a company called Laux to do a quality of earnings report. We hired investment bankers to shop the business for us nationwide. And it ended up that Premier Truck Group, which is a division of Penske, bought it out. And the one thing I really learned is when you sell to a publicly traded company, their due diligence process is incredible. And by the end of the deal, I was quite confident they knew more about my business than I did because they were asking questions even I couldn't answer. Yeah. So it was a very, it was a laborious process. It was a difficult process. It was an emotional process. You're giving up your baby, basically, per se, and you have to decide, is this the right moment for that to take place? And I had decided in my gut that it was the right time. I've steered a lot of the business by my gut, using data and information, but ultimately my gut makes the decision. And in this case, I thought it was the right time, given where the truck industry is at in today's world.
So you guys had intended to sell. They didn't approach you. You had intended to sell and marketed it. And
we made the decision. I made the decision to sell. And there was several local dealers who had an interest, but I knew the ultimate value was far larger than the local market. So we went on a national search, and we had dealers from around the country. We probably had 6 different bidders from around the country, from California to Penske's out of Dallas and Detroit. We had dealers out of Iowa, Indiana, Wisconsin, also Minnesota. But it was a national search because I didn't want to leave a stone unturned. Yep. And we looked at private equity groups also.
Okay. And how many dealerships or locations do you guys have?
We sold 9 locations.
Okay. Awesome. Very cool. What is, describe that feeling, because how long did you own River States?
I worked there for 32 years. Okay. I was probably the owner for 25 years.
Okay.
So, again, it's like a baby you gave birth to, even though I didn't start the business. My father-in-law did, and I acquired it from him. It still is very difficult to give that up, and every day people come to you and want things, and now nobody needs me for anything. I'm just a sad sack that nobody needs, so don't sell your business. Nobody will need you after the fact.
We've had other people that have came on here as well that have sold and just kind of described. Nobody's going to feel bad for somebody who got a big pile of money selling a company, right?
I don't think there's anybody who should feel sorry.
Right. But as the owner, that is a huge part of your identity and who you are. And then one day it's gone, and they don't want you involved in the business anymore. They want to put their own people in place. And so that's definitely, I would imagine, a very unique feeling.
It is a unique feeling, and I probably read 20 to 25 white papers on people who have sold their businesses and the recoil and the lack of identity, and in some cases the depression and other things that they went through to sell the business. So I did do my due diligence on what it would do to me mentally. So I knew that, I wouldn't be getting the phone calls to make the decisions every minute of the day. I knew there'd be decisions made that maybe I don't agree with. One of the things that was important to me is that everyone get rehired at all the companies, and we were able to accomplish that goal, which I thought was a great goal. Rather than getting the largest dollar amount, I wanted what was best for the employees also. And we were able to accomplish that, so everyone who wanted to be rehired was rehired.
That's amazing.
Yeah. So it was very, very pleasing to me for that. But it is a little bit break of your identity. I used to be a big deal, they say. Now I'm a nobody.
Well, thank you for joining us.
Yes.
Well, now that you're on the podcast, you can be considered a big deal again.
All right, I am. With the millions and millions of fans.
Tell us, what's your story before owning the company, Joe? Did you grow up wanting to be an entrepreneur, or what was your story before that?
I grew up knowing I wanted to be successful at something. I loved sports, so I wanted to be successful at sports. But when you're 5'10" and 125 pounds, you realize basketball is not going to get you there. I did run track and cross country in high school and college at UWL, so I learned how to work hard through running, per se. My dad was somewhat of an entrepreneur. He owned a car wash and a gas station in the old-time fix-it shop, but he was just a worker. He just loved hard work, and I liked smart work more than hard work, because he would have you move one wood pile to another place just for something to do, and I didn't find that particularly rewarding. So I knew at that time, I grew up in a family of 10, so I'm probably really the only entrepreneur of the 10, which is interesting. Most chose to go to work. They're all highly educated, but most went to work for a company or a corporation or a business. So I'm really the only one that went out on my own from that group. But I didn't have an original vision. I originally wanted to get a PE or health and fitness because I liked running and I liked that lifestyle. And it wasn't until I was taking a test on a gym floor at UWL, and I'm like, this is really not higher education. I'm laying on my stomach on a gym floor taking a test and paying $10,000 a year to do it. So they can't even give me a desk. I don't know if this is my future or is going to be as lucrative as I hope to live my life. So my friends were in business school, so I had a night job, and I woke up from the night, slept till like 3 p.m. after working all night. And I called the university and he said I need to change to business, and it was the best decision of my life.
So that's kind of where, from UWL, is where your passion for business, per se, started?
Yes. I was a really mediocre student in high school, even though I was from a family of 10. My parents never told me you needed to take any college prerequisites. So my senior year, after taking wood shop and metals, I was told that, I said, I'm going to college. And they go, well, you don't have one college prep course yet, so you better take them all your senior year. So I was with all the sophomores and juniors my senior year, and trying to get ready to get into UWL, which thankfully you went to UWL.
Yep.
It's a much more difficult school to get into now. Back when I was going there, it was far easier to get into. Thank the Lord for that. So, plus I could run fast, so that helped too.
Yeah.
But I loved the study of business. Some of the things were difficult. Finance, when you have $2 to your name and they're talking about leverage, well, that is leverage. But, you're in these finance classes talking about compounding interest, and we're at $2, and it's $2 all you can drink this weekend.
Right.
So this is how I got to manage my money. So, but I had a great time at UWL. I learned a lot. I learned how to work. I learned how to study. I had some great student mentors. One who runs Sargento Foods now was one of my mentors in college, and just had a great experience there at UWL, and really knew that's what I wanted to do. I probably wanted to get into sales originally.
Okay.
And everything is selling in business. You're always ABC, always be closing, and always be selling. I don't care if you answer the phone, you're selling.
That's great. Was there any professor or somebody at UWL that made a big impact on you in that time?
There was multiple that made a big impact. I had an accounting professor that wanted me to go into accounting at a Big 8 firm, but I realized there that was really a lot of singularity to the job, and I wanted much more variety from a position. I'm one that likes to get my hands in all areas of the business, whether it be sales, marketing, finance, personnel. I love that part of the business world and the dynamics. I call business, when I look at business, it's a puzzle, and you're putting a puzzle together. But every night when you go home, the picture changes and the pieces change a little bit. And tomorrow you got to try to put it back together again the next day. And I enjoy that part of it, even though I can't do puzzles. I enjoyed that part of business.
Yeah.
So
that's a great visual. So you did combine your passion for sports and business. You spent some time with New Orleans Saints.
I did. UWL had a class called Executive in Residence. So we'd go to the Radisson, and they'd bring in guest speakers, and they brought in Jim Finks, who was the general manager of the Saints and at one time the Vikings. And I really wanted to work back in that day in professional sports. And I called the Saints every day. And this is when a long-distance call was like $1.50. I'm not talking a cell phone where you make everybody. I mean, you got the rotary phone in your house or dorm room, and I'm calling the stinking Saints every day.
Wow.
And they finally just said, "You're hired." Anybody this relentless and this dumb who won't give up, you're hired. So I got a great job there. They called it Assistant Training Camp Coordinator, which meant I got to drive the coach to the press conferences in a golf cart. I got to check the players in for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And there was one guy named Craig Ironhead Hayward who was overweight. So I'd tell him he couldn't eat. So it's always nice to be 19 or 20 years old and a guy who's 250-pound running back and say, "You're a little obese. You can't eat today." So that was very interesting. I learned how professional football players disassemble a dash, because when they got cut, my job was to take them to the airport. So I had one guy who ripped apart the dash.
No way.
And of a Pontiac Grand Am from Clayson Pontiac, who was giving loaner cars at the time. And I just said, "Oh, man, you got a real shaft. I'm so sorry." I was probably as kind as you could be when I was driving him to the airport, because I just didn't want to get beat up. But it was a very good experience of fear.
Yeah.
When you have some guy who's 6'5", 250, and he's ripping the dash apart because his dreams have been broken. So that was an interesting part of the position. And then, of course, my most difficult job is when the owner came to town, and Jim thinks I would have to drive to Cub Foods and buy him 2 or 3 bottles of Absolute every night. So that was a difficult part of the task. You study for years to go out to Cub Foods at the time and buy booze for them. So I was glad I was of age and could do that for them.
Right.
For the Saints.
Cool experience, though. How long were you there? Was that
2 summers?
2 summers? Okay.
2 summers. They used to train at UWL. And
so that was locally. You were not
I was not in New Orleans.
Okay.
They trained at UWL, and I worked 2 summers for them. It was a great experience, and that's how I got my first job, because I got my first job out of college with Dole Food Company, the banana pineapple company.
I went there in Hawaii.
Yep. And the person who hired was from New Orleans, so every interview question was, tell me about Bobby Hebert, tell me about this guy, tell me about that guy. And we never did talk about anything that I was going to do on the job. It was all talking about that experience with the Saints. And having that on my resume, I got interviews for jobs that I wasn't qualified for. I was way over my head in a lot of these interviews, but they liked that on the resume, so it was important. Yeah. So, and I also got to eat for free, which was even great as a college kid when they would fly in Gulf shrimp and things like that. And, I'm used to eating ramen noodles and macaroni and cheese, and I'm gorging myself on Gulf shrimp and steak after I check in the players and tell them they're too fat to eat.
Right. Take their portion.
Yes,
that's
exactly.
Great. So tell us about the transition from all of that until when you purchased the company. So you did purchase it from your father-in-law?
Yes.
Okay.
My father-in-law, Bob Freiss, was probably the most generous, honorable man you'll ever meet in the world. Just a class act, business legend in the lacrosse community. He owned Lacrosse Concrete Company and 26 ready-mix plants, had a big empire in concrete and ready-mix, and then got into the truck dealership business as an offshoot to supply trucks to the concrete companies. So he was looking to retire and didn't really have many heirs in the business. And I had an interest in moving back to the area. So I came in and learned a little bit of the business, and then he eventually sold it to me. And then we took it over from him and grew the business.
Tell us about what was the size of the business approximately when you had purchased it?
Oh, about $1 million.
Okay. And I imagine you didn't have $1 million at that time. So how did you acquire?
I took out a bank loan, actually.
Okay.
I pledged. I was a good saver. I saved from college on. Okay. I paid off all my student loans as quickly as I could. But I was a good saver. I was very frugal back then. I'm not frugal anymore, unfortunately, where I'd have a lot more money. Note to self, be frugal.
Yeah.
Because you're on a fixed income now.
Yep.
But I took out a bank loan, and I had to pledge securities on the bank loan. And it was interesting because the banker and I made a deal where as I paid the loan down, the value of the securities could drop. Well, in 2008, there was a housing boom bust, and securities went down, and they tried to call the loan on me, so I had to put more money in, which was a stressful time in your life when you didn't really have the money, and you had to figure out a way to get a few $100,000 more to get your security level back up to so you're not out of trust on your loan. So that was a tough time, and we were expanding also at the same time. So it was a little stressful.
Yeah. Oh, I can imagine. So what year did you purchase it?
2004.
Okay. So not that long after is when all that started happening.
Yes.
What were some of the key things that you did early on? Like, this was the first business that you had purchased or owned, correct?
Yes.
So, and you're buying, like, I think of myself, I've never purchased a business. I've started stuff from scratch, but you kind of figure it out along the way, and you can figure it out along the way when you're smaller and you're building the blocks, but you are stepping into an already operational business, never having been a business owner before.
No.
So are there some key people that you relied on, or what are some of the key things that you did early on?
Well, unfortunately, part of the problem was I relied too much on myself at that time, and I didn't get enough key people involved. So I would always caution people not to think they know everything and do too much themselves like I tried to do. I tried to do it all myself rather than getting more experts involved. But I knew the business had huge potential and that we weren't tapping it. We were very conservatively run. And when you can't make the final decision, you can't run it the way you see fit. So once I was able to run it the way I saw fit, we could be much more aggressive and make decisions that we knew we could grow the business. So I knew the potential was there to be, far, far greater than what we were.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it was plainly obvious to me that was the case. Okay. So it was like buying a hidden gem.
That's when I look at buying properties, looking at value add and room for opportunity. And I think it's the same thing in purchasing a business like that. And tell us more about the importance of building a leadership team and having those key people around you. Like, what did that transition look like when you did bring those people on?
Well, I looked for what I'd call alien employees, and, they weren't particularly really aliens. But I call an alien employee is they're just so hardworking, and they think outside of the box, and they do extraordinary things. And we were lucky to have a multitude of females and males who were just alien employees. And we had them in strategic areas, whether it be sales, accounting, finance. Probably the best thing I did is I added a CFO, COO, and he put a lot of systems in place and a lot of financial measurement tools. So our financials, the factory financials probably broken down over 6 pages. We would take that further and probably break that down over 40 pages and 20 line items a page. So we would have very intricate metrics every month that we would look at. And we could measure the business very, very closely that way. And that allowed us to really grow and see where our margins were, see where our potential for improvement was. And we also joined things called 20 groups, where you get together with dealers who aren't competitive and you compare financials and brainstorm for better ideas.
What are some of the key things or key metrics you're looking at on those financials?
Those is in the truck business, it's called absorption. So you want your body shop, your parts, and your service, your gross profits from that to cover all your fixed overheads. Then you don't have to sell trucks to make a profit. So you want to be at 100% absorption. We were able to get the business at 130, 140% absorption. So we were making a lot of money before we sold a truck. So we weren't desperate to sell trucks. And which means you're not taking these superb risks with trucks where you're buying 100, hoping you can sell them. We bought what we knew we could sell, and that made us very profitable and very lucrative over the years.
So 100% absorption would be a break even as far as the profit from those would cover your fixed expenses?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And then above and beyond that, so you would have a essential 30% profit margin on those plus the trucks.
Plus the trucks.
Awesome.
Yes.
Cool.
So it really worked out well. We looked at everything. I mean, we looked at service margins. We looked at customer pay margin. We looked at warranty margin. We looked at parts margins to outside customers, parts margins in the shop, parts margins to the new and used truck department. We broke down and tried to do Moneyball approach to new trucks, which ones sell the best, which ones sell for the most profit. And it's hard because there's so many custom trucks out there with different specs. We did that a lot with Sprinter vans and things like that, where we tried to do more of that analytics approach, the Moneyball approach to business. And I think that was helpful. And other people didn't approach it like that. They just approached it like a good old boy business.
Just speaking in general for somebody not in the truck industry, just speaking to any business owner, what are some of the key metrics that they should be looking at, and how often should they be looking at them?
Well, every business is different, but you probably should be looking at the very limited monthly. At the very least, you should be looking at it monthly, but you should have goals and a budget that tells you where you are and tracks your month. But obviously sales are important, but you can't spend sales. You can only spend gross profit. So we always looked at gross profit. Originally, my father-in-law had everything commissioned off of sales. I switched it all around to commission everything off of gross profit because I can't spend sales. I can only spend what trickled back to me. And that was a good decision to make. So I look at gross profit. Obviously, you're looking at expenses. There is a lot of inflation going on in the world right now. I mean, I know the government says that there's not the level of inflation that I truly believe is out there. I mean, if you try to get your car repaired at a body shop, it's up 50% in the last 3 years. I mean, if you want auto insurance, it's gone crazy. So not to mention groceries, housing. I mean, I looked at La Crosse as being an inexpensive housing market, And you guys are experts on real estate, and it's not an inexpensive housing market anymore.
Comparatively, it is, but
it's still hard to find.
Correct.
If you're a newlywed trying to find your first home, you're going to be in a bidding war for a mediocre home.
Well, I got a great 3-bedroom on Redfield Street. If anybody wants to buy that, I'm flipping right now. Were there any, other than the 2008 time, what are some other big significant setbacks in your journey?
I've made many a mistake. Part of the thing was I had to make hundreds of decisions a day. I think I'm really good at making decisions. I can pull the trigger and make a decision. But you have to be comfortable that you're going to make a mistake. And I made many a mistake. So we looked at a lot of analytics, and one of the analytics was there was a market in Toma and Oakdale at Highway Double P there where there's a lot of truck stops. The truck traffic is unbelievable, and we thought, given the economics of that, there would be a demand for a repair facility there. And we put one there, and we struggled mightily because the trucks didn't stop and stay. They fueled up, slept, and left. And we could not tap into those two markets of those truck stops, no matter how hard we tried. And the local market was too small, and we needed scale and volume to return on our overheads, because our overheads were expensive compared to the average person. Just because, we had benefits, we had 401k, we had everything that a major corporation has, plus computer systems and insurances that are protecting the big corporation. And as you add it, it's, part of that. But we failed there, and that was very disappointing. So we ended up selling the building and the land to Laux Truck Stop, who is our neighbor, which turned out fine. But
so that's where your facility used to be on, was where Laux is there?
Laux, and then right across the street.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, but it's not fun to fail. But the thing is, if you make decisions, you're going to fail. You're going to make a bad decision. But you have to look at things very quickly, assess it. And I always looked at, how is it going to impact the customer? How is it going to impact the employee? How is it going to impact the company? Those three things as quickly as I could. And who is it going to affect? Which customers? Which employees? What part of the company? Okay, boom, now we got to make a decision. And sometimes we could assess that in 30 seconds. Sometimes it took a day or two. But we didn't take weeks and months and things like that to make decisions. We moved quickly.
What if somebody else is making the decision and they fail in their decision? How do you respond to that?
Early in my career, probably not well. Later, as I gave up control and realized, one of the things my father-in-law was great at was making decisions, but he also wanted to make every decision. And I saw that was another area of where we could grow if we allowed others to make decisions. So if you were a manager for us and you ran the service department, you may have had a diesel technology degree, but you were eventually, the way I had it set up, you were running a multi-million-dollar business yourself. So we had a P&L for them. They were run through and trained on the financials. And I said, you may not have thought you were running the biggest business of anybody in Caledonia High School, but you're running an $8 million business now. So we expect you to run it as such. And, you're going to make decisions, you're going to make some wrong ones. But I learned to overreact very little to the wrong decisions as long as it's learned. If it's the same repetitive bad decision, then you need to address it if it's a one-off. And most were one-off decisions that they didn't make well. They weren't, because people want to do well. People want to make good decisions. Nobody gets up in the morning and go, I want to go to work and make some bad decisions so that I'm lose the company some money and get the employees in trouble.
Yep.
It's not how it works.
Yep.
So.
Well, we have some exciting news. We're extremely excited to share this special shout out to the very first sponsor of the Pay It Forward podcast, Dahl Automotive. Dahl is a fifth-generation family-owned business, and for over 100 years, they've been committed to making a positive impact on the community. not only by providing excellent service, but by meeting the greatest needs in our area. So through their exceptional service and their humility-based servant leadership, Dahl continues to make a positive impact and be a staple of the La Crosse area. So if you are looking for a new or a pre-owned vehicle, or you have any questions about vehicles at all, we highly recommend you stop out to your nearest Dahl dealership today. And if you're interested about how you can potentially become a sponsor of the show, please visit our website, paidforwardpodcast.com, to learn more. Now, back to your regular program.
So speaking to like the growth and the scaling of your business, when did that start for you after you purchased it? Was that right away in your mind and you started growing and scaling right away, or how long were you owning it?
It started right away in my mind. We expanded in Eau Claire. We built a new dealership there. I really wanted to be in that Hudson market because I could franchise, these are franchises, and you have geographic territories where you can put a physical location. You can sell anywhere, but you need a physical location. So I wanted to be in that Hudson area to attack the Twin Cities, and that was the best move we made in my career. We built there. We spent $10 million, and I would say we returned it in 36 months.
Wow.
And we spent, it was in a time when the economy was in a little bit of a down spell when we built, and it was a little nerve-wracking, but, and that was a lot of money. Now it'd be a $30 million build, as things have gone up cost-wise. We bought 110 acres of land. We had beautiful interstate access, but we were outside of Roberts, Wisconsin, which is a little further out than we'd want to be. But we were able to attack the Twin Cities marketplace. And I would say we tripled our business just on that decision alone.
Wow.
So that was a really good decision, an effective decision. But it was really about being closer to that population base. La Crosse is only so large. La Crosse is a decent transportation hub. Eau Claire is a decent transportation hub. But La Crosse doesn't have any truck stops right in town. Where Roberts is outside, but there's truck stops right there. Plus there's all that Twin Cities to Chicago traffic. And we did very well off of that business.
How do you enter into a new market? And you built the facility there?
I built it from scratch, hired every employee from scratch.
How do you do that from day one to find all the right people that are rowing in the same direction, that know what to do? Explain the process of entering
on that one.
What
we did was we started in Hudson with one large customer, and we did a relationship where we did everything for that customer. If he broke down in Minnesota at 3 a.m, we handled that repair. So we were handling everything for him out of a building that they had. So we started small there and had maybe 6 people. So we really ramped up quickly to where we overburdened that facility. And then we built this larger facility. And then on the sales side, I went out and basically bought people. I overpaid to get the best talent I could in the door, knowing that you have to ramp up so fast revenue-wise when the bills start clicking. So we overpaid to get talent in the door. And they were experienced talent, not beginner talent. And then another case, we had a business called Minnesota Truck and Trailer in Eagan, Minnesota. That was another startup, but that was much easier. A person came to us and said, I'm running a body shop and service facility. I've got 8 people who want to come to work. I don't like the boss I'm with. Can you build a building or get a building for me? And we were able to get a building in the Twin Cities, which you can't get now, a nice commercial building, and remodel it. And that ended up being one of the best real estate assets we ever bought. But that one I was able to just plug in people, and then he already had the customer base. So we never lost a dollar from day one, which was very, very rewarding.
Yeah. Talk about the difference between just overpaying and hiring very experienced, skilled people versus bringing in new people that maybe they fit your culture and their values, but they lack experience. They're newer in the industry that you could probably, they're going to cost less money, and you can train them into being what you want to be. Talk about the pros and cons to that.
I think the pros of why I did the one with overpaying and bringing in the more experienced talent. I knew that the customers who were coming from the Twin Cities, we were a little less convenient than who they were doing business with already because of our physical location. So we would offer pickup and delivery, where we'd go into the cities, pick up their truck, service it, and bring it back to them. So we're trying to make it seamless for them. Then we were able to bring in the next group of people who could be mentored by the experienced people who would understand the culture once we develop the culture. But culture is an ongoing process. Our culture, you have to reinforce culture every day. I think in this area, probably the best company that I see that does it is Quick-Trip. They have great culture, and they have it through and through. But I know they're working on it every day. And we actually even had a person the last 3 years who was kind of like director of culture, because I got too far away from the day-to-day people, and I wasn't touching the people all the time. So they may not feel that, and the managers were getting too busy. So we worked with him to talk about culture, and we would constantly reinforce. We'd have quarterly meetings with the employees and talk about our culture, our fit. How do you feel you fit in with that, to try to make sure that we had a match, because we were losing people, and a lot was they didn't get the culture.
What are some of the key things that person or you guys did to reinforce culture?
Just what expectations were. Expectations are, you show up. We hope you show up on time. The standards have gotten a little different. We hope you show up on time. It's a workman-like culture. There's no way around it. It's a grinder's business. The truck business is a grinder's business. And I heard in your last podcast and a lot of the podcasts, you always get to the grind and the hustle. Yeah. You always talk about that. It's the similar thing. You're measured on a warranty job and service by, you get this amount of time to do it. You can't take 3 days when it pays 4 hours. And the customer won't wait, because time is money. So we tried to do things to make it seamless for the customer. So like in the body shop, deer hits are a big thing in this area. So a deer hit, when I first started, they'd be down 5 or 6 days. And what we did is we built these loaner hoods. So they hit a deer, they drove into the shop. We put our loaner hood on the truck. They drove off. We fixed the hood while they were driving, making money. They came back in at their convenience. We put their hood back on. They've got maybe 4 or 5 hours of downtime versus 6 days, and they make an extra $3,000 of revenue. So, we tried to sell based off of how can you make more revenue for your business by doing business with us. So, but culture is, you mentioned that's the key to every business. I'm sure you have it with your real estate businesses, the culture of what you want to accomplish and what you want people to do and how you want them to present themselves. And we wanted to be presented as professionals. We're not fly-by-nights. We have tooling, training, technology. We're the highest tech. We have the highest level of training. We found out we weren't getting, and I would tell this to any entrepreneur out there, if you're not able to get the talent you want, it's not going to change overnight. So we weren't able to get the talent we needed diesel technician-wise. And Western has a great school. Chippewa Valley has a great school, but we weren't getting the number of talent we wanted or the right culture. So I started my own university called Wisconsin Institute of Transportation Technology. We hired the head of Western's auto department, and he's training technicians in our shop. They have 20 hours of classroom a week and 20 hours in the shop. And it's about a year process. And then they graduate. They have no student debt because they're being paid probably $20 an hour while they're working for us. So think of that paradigm. You can go to Western and pay to go to school, or you can come to us, learn the latest and greatest technology, and get paid while you sit in class. You have no debt. And you come out, and then we can bring you into our master's program because we have a high-level trainer who's like a graduate course trainer. So we had the whole training process we were implementing through, and we were recruiting the kids out of high school ourselves.
Wow.
But I was waiting for people to come to me, and instead we have to go get them. And I would encourage entrepreneurs, if you have that ability, go get them. Don't wait them to come to you.
As I say, build it and they will come.
Yeah. And that's what you hear nowadays is we can't find good people. We can't find good help. And there's a case for that, obviously, but you look at some people and, well, what are you doing outside of posting on Indeed to find somebody? You know what I mean?
Yes.
That's super innovative and unique to do that. I imagine you retained a lot of those people that went through the schooling.
100% so far.
Really?
Yes.
Wow. Wow. That is awesome. So that's really
As
cool.
when I left, 100%.
Okay.
So
very cool.
But now you're gone, so now it might be like
I can't be
now it might
responsible for
98.
anything
It's
that
dropping
happens
now.
after that. No, they're still there. I know that they're still there.
So we didn't write this question down, but I'm reading a book right now, and it talks about the $2 million to $5 million phase as being kind of like the desert, where like up to 1 million, you can be profitable and you only have a few people and everybody's working really hard and you have a tight-knit team. But like the 2 to 5 million period is where you kind of have to push through a place where you need more people than you have profit, and that you need to build and grow and reinvest and scale with profit or money that you're not making. Is that something you experienced?
I think that's really accurate in the truck space in particular. I saw it on the fleet side more than the dealer side, but the dealer side is similar. You need scale. And one of the things you look at is, we had 8 locations or 9 locations at the end. The person I sold to has 50. And they're doing $4 or $5 billion of business. I'm selling 2,000 trucks a year, 3,000. They're selling 25,000. So it's a scale business now. That's what it's really moving to. But on the truck fleet side, you see that in particular. I always said if a guy has 0 to 25 trucks and does everything almost himself, he makes a ton of money. If he has 100 trucks, he's got to have everything that a 500 truck fleet needs. But he doesn't have the revenue or he's got too much overhead and not enough revenue. So you almost need to get to 500 trucks to really make money again. So there's that size gap that I think you're talking about, that you have to either decide I want to stay here or I want to try to get to that level.
And push past it.
Yeah, we just tried to push past all that.
Okay.
And, Deloitte named us again for the 10th year of the Wisconsin 75, and that's based on sales. So obviously truck sales are a large dollar amount, but people think we just sell trucks in La Crosse. I mean, our largest market was California. We're probably the number 2 EV seller in the United States.
Wow.
But it all goes to California. But we've had great relationships. So it's not just, don't hold yourself to just what your vision is or what someone says your market is. The world is your market. How can you create the world to be your market? And building relationships, and someone leaves this company and he goes to that company and we sell them trucks at that company.
Tell us more. Let's talk sports memorabilia a little bit. You have a pretty impressive collection.
I do.
Tell us more about how that came to be.
Well, I've always loved sports. Like I mentioned, I grew up and I wanted to be in professional sports. I realized when I worked for the Saints that they don't treat the people in the front office that well or pay well. So it was really a turnoff watching how the full-time people got treated. And even when you talk to the Packers now, they'll get a very entry-level job and they'll have MBAs and master's degree people applying for these jobs. They're so in demand and they don't have to pay anything because the job demand is so great. People want to work there. I love the story behind sports memorabilia. So just last week, we sold the Packers original stock certificate from 1923.
You were telling me about that. You sold that?
The NFL came in. It sold for, I think we bought it for $17,000 in 2017, and I think it sold for just a little over $110,000.
Wow.
So it was a
That's
good,
awesome.
decent return on the investment. I don't think I do as well in the stock market as I did in that one.
Yeah.
But I've had many.
I'm sure you have stories the opposite
I have
direction.
many stories
too.
the opposite direction where I overpaid. Yes, I got many of those.
Okay.
I'm a really big Packers fan, so I love Packers stuff. A lot of stuff I have, the really good stuff, like I have Brett Favre's MVP trophy. That's on consignment to the Packer Hall of Fame in the Brett Favre area. And then the one piece I love at the Packer Hall of Fame is Jerry Kramer. You know, everybody wants to win the Super Bowl and they want a game-worn jersey. Well, they're really hard to get. Well, there's only one from Super Bowl I, and I was able to acquire it. And it's Jerry Kramer's, who's a Hall of Famer, and it's at Lambeau. So that's a really cool piece.
That's very cool.
Yeah, I've got, like, for example, Tiger Woods. His first tournament was the GMO in Milwaukee, I think in '96. And
That was in Brown Deer?
yeah,
right?
at Brown Deer Country Club, I think. And he had a hole-in-one that tournament, so I have that ball.
Wow.
Yeah, it's autographed by Tiger Woods, and he autographed it and gave it to somebody in the crowd, and
No way.
I ended up paying more than I should to acquire it. So I've owned every golf majors trophy at times, you know, which the hardest one to get is the Masters trophies. I've had baseball jerseys. I've got a really beautiful Hank Aaron jersey. I've got a Kareem Abdul-Jabbar Bucks jersey. I've got too many Giannis jerseys because they're falling in value dramatically because they sell too many of them. So there's where I make my mistakes.
So are you buying them to keep them and look at them, or are you buying them to sell them?
I enjoy the story, but ultimately it's somewhat of a hobby business. I'm not buying. I look at it like an asset. I'm trying to buy assets and not just buy liabilities.
Yeah.
So I hope that they appreciate. So some do, some don't.
So how many pieces do you currently have? Like even like raw? I know it's like
Probably
there-
300.
Okay.
You know, I've got Hulk Hogan's boots from WrestleMania 3 with blood on them when he fought Andre the Giant. Yeah.
Wow. So like the trophy. So you said you have. How do you buy like Brett Favre's MVP?
He had an auction at the Super Bowl, and it was going to go for charity, and it didn't do well at all. Trophies don't do well for some reason. I had another one as Player of the Year trophy, and I paid a lot more for it, and I just recently sold it because I had all this in my office, and I left the building, obviously, and I couldn't bring it all home. I can tell you that. Deanne would never have all that stuff at the house. Plus, I'd get robbed. So I don't have anything really on display, so you can't rob me.
Yeah, that's just surprising. Do most players sell their MVP trophy? Don't like,
No.
I just because I was gonna say you have that. You tried to have golf major trophies.
Yeah.
I'm like, me personally, if I won the MVP, nobody's touching my trophy.
Yeah. And you know, I don't think Brett Favre needs the money, so I don't know why he did that in particular. Some people just ultimately, we think they make a lot of money, but they have a short career, and a lot of it goes to taxes, agents, and maybe bad investments too. You know, if you're buying assets all the time, that's one of the things is try to buy assets or something that's going to keep value or appreciate. But, you know, I've been known to buy some assets that depreciate, just like everybody else. You guys are in real estate. Nothing depreciates ever.
Not yet.
No.
I'm sure at some point. But
Do you have a piece that's the most sentimental to you? That maybe you didn't buy it because you think this is the biggest asset, but one that you're like, I absolutely want this piece of memorabilia.
I've got a Super Bowl I ring that I really wanted. Packers Super Bowl I ring. I've got every Super Bowl ring from the Packers. I was trying to collect every World Championship thing they have because even in the Hall of Fame, they don't have everything from the World Championship. One year it was a Zippo lighter. One year was a belt buckle. So I have some of those pendants and things like that I bought where I found them that I have on loan to try to complete their display at the Hall of Fame. But I think Bart Starr gave a lot of his rings to the Hall of Fame, so then they sent mine back because the player I had wasn't nearly as big a name as Bart Starr. So there's a lot of generous people out there that donate and consign. I'd rather people enjoy it like at a Packer Hall of Fame than it sit in the safe in my house or in my basement or at the bank.
yeah.
it doesn't really excite me then. I like to see it. That's why the office was nice, because I could see all this stuff out and enjoy it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's really cool. Well, Joe, one thing we talked about before this episode is like what you've done is you've stuck to this. This has been your business for 35 years. It's really popular today to be a real estate agent on the side and have a W-2 and be a real estate investor and do all these different things. And I think you're a testament of working hard at something for a long period of time and eventually reaping the rewards of that. So like what do you what's your word of advice to somebody that really they want to be an entrepreneur, they don't know what they want to do, they're looking, or maybe they are doing a bunch of different things? What's your word of advice to that person?
I think you have to love what you do. I loved when I was in the produce business. I enjoyed it. I just loved business. So I could do any business. The truck business I loved. Do I know how a diesel engine works, and do I know how to overhaul an engine? Absolutely not. I have no mechanical skills whatsoever, which always the customer said, well, I want to talk to the boss about this truck problem. I'm like, it's all ball bearings these days. I don't know. So I don't have that skill set. I think it's similar to what you do in real estate. You see the growth opportunities. And every year I saw future opportunities. And there's still opportunities out there today, even though I sold the business. There's still opportunities out there. And I saw opportunities for growth, and I saw opportunities for change. And I mentioned that the truck business was truly a puzzle where, say, for example, 9 months ago, the market was really strong, but I could feel it's starting to weaken. So we started canceling trucks and weaning down on trucks and things like that, which was the right decision to do. But some people don't have that ability to know when to put the foot on the gas or take the foot off the gas. And that's one of the skills that I brought to the table in the truck business. But the reason I stayed there, one, it was a family business. And then I owned the business. So I could build a legacy for my family and my kids and their future and their kids, hopefully. But I don't think there's anything wrong with having 2 or 3 gigs. I think real estate, I'm always jealous of real estate people because it seems like you don't have to deal with as many people.
Sure.
You don't have 270 people that you're dealing with every day and hoping they come to work and all their personal problems, unless you have a huge firm, obviously. Yeah. But I don't think there's anything wrong with the multitude of jobs. I think the people who jump a job every year, that's a difficult thing. They just haven't figured out what they want to do. I mean, you guys obviously have a passion for what you do. I've listened to your podcasts, and, the number of real estate holdings you have already is really impressive for your 70 years of age.
I appreciate that.
Yes.
I appreciate it.
But I just saw opportunity every year, and we were growing, and that was fun to do. And then the last 3-4 years, we just had such incredible financial return years. I don't know if they're repeatable.
Was there ever a time that you were tempted to sell earlier, or
No.
No? You were committed to.
I was committed to it, and I'm 57, which is not old, but I have 2 daughters. One works in D.C. in the Senate. The other one is doing student teaching now in St. Peter, Minnesota. They had no interest in the business. I didn't have any heirs, and it would be a half-hour explanation on the whole sale process and the thought behind it. But from what I know, and theoretically, it was a very opportune time, and I didn't want to be in the business at age 80 staring at my shoes the whole time where I couldn't look up and be the last guy out of the game. And this gives me opportunities to develop whatever my second life is, or whatever the rest of my life is, which is philanthropy. It's other businesses, other ventures. I've got some real estate, that I kept, some raw land that we kept. I've got some apartment buildings. You mentioned everybody's in real estate somewhere along the line.
Yep.
So I had to join that just because you told me that. So
You bought them just for you.
yes,
Right.
probably
Right.
bought them from him and overpaid.
If you bought it from him, you surely did.
Yes.
What are some of the, are there 2 or 3 key business principles that you've learned along your journey that would be helpful to a younger entrepreneur starting out?
You have to have the ability to make decisions. That's one of the important things. You have to, if you're so wishy-washy and you just overanalyze things and you can't make a decision, you have to make a decision to buy a property or not buy a property. Either pencils out or doesn't pencil out.
Yep.
You can't wander over that property for 3 years unless it's a dying property, obviously. You have to be, in my role as CEO, you had to be honest, integrity, and when you told people what you were going to do, you had to do it. You couldn't lie to them. And a lot of people try to wishy-washy around people, or I'm very direct, and that was one of my weaknesses. I was just too direct, particularly younger in my career, where I was just so direct. People, I just overwhelmed them, and I don't think I do as much now. But I was so intense and wanted to get ahead so bad. But my father-in-law taught me, he said, you're going to harm people by accident, by all the decisions you make. Don't ever harm them on purpose, whether it be the customer because you fix their truck and it broke down again. You've harmed them somehow that way. So you do the best work, you do it right the first time. Your employees, you tell them the exact facts, the best of your ability. You don't monkey around with them because they trust people and respect people who are honest and say and follow up with it.
And then you mentioned the word, this is going a little bit off of that, but you mentioned the word legacy and philanthropy. And we know that you've done a lot to give back to the community. So can you speak to the importance in your eyes of being generous, and then in what ways has that changed your perception of money? As somebody who has now sold a business and built a lot of success and wealth and all that stuff, but now you've been very generous and given back a lot.
Yeah, we've given back a lot to the community, and there's people who give far, far, far more. So, but I've had some good mentors in that realm. And with wealth, they always say, becomes responsibility. One of the things I like to do is give back to the youth. So my high school, we have scholarships there. UWL, we have scholarships in the business school. We also support track and cross country and athletics. We're very big into Alzheimer's in the La Crosse area, particularly the caretakers of Alzheimer's with End Alls Fest and Oasis and Spark. The Women's Fund in La Crosse, we're trying to get female entrepreneurs in honor of my mom's name. We're trying to get some female entrepreneurship going in the community. I have 2 daughters, and I hope that, they see that as we're trying to do something good for females in the industry. And I think it's harder for a female to be an entrepreneur because they're expected to be, if they have a family, they're expected to be the mother. They're expected to take care of the house. They're expected to do so many things unless you have a really unique relationship where everything's equalized, and it's difficult to do that with people working 2 different jobs and moving in 2 different directions all the time. But, we want to mentor them. I'd like to be able to consult, if people need advice. Like yesterday, somebody came to the house and they have 2 or 3 business things and they wanted to run it by me, and they just wanted to respect my opinion on it. So makes me feel great.
I'll take you up on the last one.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's cheap advice too. May not be quality advice, but it's cheap advice.
There you go.
Yes.
Awesome. Well, Joe, we usually like to end the episode with, if there's one thing you want our listeners to get out of this episode, what would that be?
I think that, you can do multiple things as an entrepreneur. You don't have to take my path, which is 32 years in the same business venture. You can reinvent yourself. I'm trying to reinvent myself now. And part of that is you have to be comfortable being uncomfortable. It's one of the things I've learned is making decisions always makes all of us uncomfortable, but you have to be comfortable with your uncomfortableness. And I think that's something as an entrepreneur, you're always going to be uncomfortable. I've listened to some of the podcasts where people have their life savings into the business, and then COVID comes, and we had COVID come, and it ended up being the greatest thing for the truck industry because the demand boomed and the supply was limited. So there's many ways to get there, but it takes passion, it takes hard work, it takes commitment, it takes honesty, it takes integrity. But there's a multitude of ways. Just because I say it, this is just the opinion of me today. It doesn't mean it's right or wrong. You bring in 40 different people, and that's the great thing about this podcast is you hear 40 different versions of how I became successful. And, I look up to a lot of these other people that you've had on here and how they've accomplished things and what they've done and what they've accomplished. Whether they're bigger and have more money or smaller and have less money, they've accomplished the same thing. And I think as an entrepreneur, you don't have to know what you're going to do at 18. It could evolve. It could be 40. It could be 50. Look at how much wealth some of these people have created from their 40s on. And wealth is not everything. Life is a lot more than wealth. So.
Amazing. Well, ton of wisdom, Joe. Thank you for being here. It's awesome to hear your story, and really appreciate you taking the time to be here.
I appreciate it very much. Thank you for being on this prestigious podcast.
Yep.
Thanks, Joe. Appreciate it. Thank you, everyone, for watching this episode of the Pay It Forward podcast. If you want to find out more about the show or how you can sponsor the show to keep the conversations going, please visit our website, payitforwardpodcast.com. Again, thank you so much for your support, and we hope that you find a way this week to pay it forward.